Welcome to the Digital Marketing Podcast, brought to you by targetinternet.com. Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we're talking about the digital marketing trends and AI update part 2.
So this is a continuation from the previous episode where we were talking about all of the amazing announcements that were kind of coming out at Inbound 24, the HubSpot conference. And I was just trying to summarize what was going on. Now, this is a good point to come into this because we're going through our Coggle, our little mind map that we kind of go through. And I've got to the point where it kind of says HubSpot Copilot Breeze. So the big announcement was HubSpot announced they've got this Copilot within the tool now, and it AI assists you with everything, including writing stuff, creating landing pages, planning podcasts, all that kind of stuff. Another lecture, the OpenAI people were there, and they said the number one use for ChatGPT is for marketing. So everyone's like, yeah, AI marketing, it's going to be brilliant. We're going to get all this content. It's going to be easy, and we get to sit back and by the way, you won't be able to see, but Kieran is shaking his head as we speak. Then I went to see my favorite talk at HubSpot every year is Jay Swedelson, who has Do This, Not That, the biggest kind of marketing podcast in the US. He runs subjectline.com. I will put these links in the show notes. And he has the Guru Conference, which he is obsessed with reality TV. And so lots of parts of his talks were about reality TV. I was amazed because it wasn't just US reality TV. Everyone was asked, what's your favorite reality TV at the moment? He said, Love is Blind UK. So he's watching the international editions of these. Anyway, that's not the point. What was great is that there was all this enthusiasm for AI generated content. And you're going to have to beat this out, Lou, because we don't have swearing on our podcast. But he walked on and went, it's going to be amazing. There's going to be a tsunami of and basically saying there's going to be so much terrible content pumping out there. So what's the solution? Well, he did a couple of different talks, one on the email side of things, and how important email was, and we mentioned that in the previous podcast. But he had this great talk, and he's going to come onto the podcast and talk about it, about thriving in discomfort. And basically what he was saying is in COVID, he was basically going bankrupt because his agency had no clients coming in, and he was like, I need to meet as many people as possible. So he came up with this idea that he was going to do an event. And everyone was like, that's a terrible, an online conference. And he's like, no one needs another online conference. It's a horrible, horrible idea. And it's actually become really successful because the way he's done it was incredibly fun. Okay. And yeah, he has an email marketing agency. It's like pretty serious. They millions and millions of emails going out. But they had things like they were having like a chili eating competition. He was saying he nearly killed himself because he had one of these things and it was just, and they did it live streamed, and you can imagine it's kind of fun. They had some amazing speakers. He got some people in for some reality TV shows that he liked just because he wanted to meet them, I think. But he made a really key point, which really stands to the conversations we've been having recently about social media not working, just doing everything the same as everyone else. This whole thing of just being unique, honest, and transparent. Okay. And trying to look at that and say, okay, if we do stuff the same as everyone else, we're not going to get that kind of attention. And there were some stats that Neil Patel had come to about the best form of video at the moment is that real rough and ready, here's me holding my phone, doing a video, talking to the screen. Yeah. We've seen LinkedIn video go crazy, and they've gone to vertical videos, quite TikTok-y. Loads of people putting TikToks into LinkedIn, which isn't great. But actually that more demonstrate your expertise and your experience. Now, let's bring all this together. You've got Google talking about EAT, expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trust. We've said that social media is harder to penetrate. We've talked about the fact that getting an email list gives you ownership of that, and you've got the opportunity to have the conversation. But those emails that tend to work are the ones that are from a person and are quite conversational. And you've sent me like 2 or 3 emails recently, Kieran, and all of them have been of that style. Of just like, hi, this is what we've been up to. This is what's new. I didn't like this, but this was quite shocking. And the narrative kind of works.
It's just because people like people.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think sometimes kind of the brand sanitization that goes on removes that. And it's like, yeah, it's lovely that you're really consistent and that you're really on brand, but it's more bland than brand. And actually there is room in the word brand for personality.
Mm.
And I think, if you look at any of those examples that you were just talking about there, that's what I loved about them, is the person's personality really like zinged through.
Yeah.
And very often, when stuff's corporate, it really doesn't. It's anything but that. It's
Yeah.
had the life sucked out of it by loads of subcommittees and unnecessary meetings.
Well, my favourite thing was that one of the big things that Jay does at the conference each year is do a giveaway,
Mm.
and he gives away t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and stickers. People lose their minds for free stuff. Like it was just like the amount of people that crushed into one space. And we're being very polite,
Yeah.
but it was like, wow. And it was all loads of branded clothing, and people were like, yeah, I want
Yeah.
some of that. But my favourite thing was they had these tables of stickers, and the stickers might have the podcast brand on them. There was like I Heart Reality TV, right? Because this is become part of his brand. And it was like, I love if loving Love Island is wrong, I don't want to be right, and all this kind of stuff. But the point being is that that stuff didn't even have the branding on it. But you so know that you remember vividly where you got that from because it was a bit of fun. And it had a bit of personality built
Here's
into
the
it.
thing, though. Here's the secret about really powerful brands. They say more about the person that loves the brand.
Mm.
They're a way of expressing who I am. Like if I take that, I heart Love Island, and if that's wrong, I don't want to be right. That sticker says a million things about the person that wears it, and that's why people will be jumping at the chance to wear that. Just as when you whip out the latest iPhone, it says a million things about you.
Right.
People forget that with the whole obsession with brand, that actually sometimes allowing a bit of playfulness and fun and color into your brand, not literally color, but you know what I'm saying. This is like a bit of fun in there, can make that brand so much more desirable.
People act on their emotions, don't they?
We are emotional creatures. It's two things: story and emotion.
Yeah.
It is our world, and that's my beef. Is that a lot of brands remove that from they with their corporate cleansing. It all gets removed, and it's such a shame. Let's bring that back.
Well, I think so. It's interesting for this. I've been pondering on this for the last 6 months and refocusing what we do at Target Internet. And what came out for me is like, what's the thing we do that's most popular is the podcast. Why is that? Because it's got some personality to it, hopefully, right? That's why, we've got over 100,000 people that listen every month because it helps them. So it's going to help them in what they want, right? Which is improve their career, make their business more successful. But hopefully there's a bit of a connection to things as well, like in terms of the people involved. So I was like, and then you've got that, and then there's a bit of disconnect because on the website we've got this e-learning. Although it's on my voice, it's me in very formal mode teaching you something in a structured way, and it's like, oh, that's not how I teach in the classroom. So why is that? And it's okay. I mean, if you need to know a specific thing, that works great. But then it was like the kind of thing when we went out in the email and said, if we did complete courses as audio, like a podcast, so you could listen on the go. The amount of emails, that would be amazing because I like the podcast. I don't really like e-learning that much, but actually, if I could listen, I had a way of doing that on an app or something when I was moving about, going to the gym and everything. What a great! So that's what we're doing. Okay, so we've got the audio courses coming up. We've got the app launching, so that makes a big difference. And then it was like, okay, we do these master classes and we get 20, 30, 40, 50 people along to these things, but it was like an additional cost. And then you've got to go and get sign off from your boss to go to it. And it's like, well, if we're talking about creating a culture of learning, let's just give those away as part of the membership. Where else can you get a load of stuff and a half-day course every month for 20 quid a month? Nowhere. So there's good value, obviously, there as well. But it's that you can connect to us. You can connect to the team. It's human. You can ask questions. And it's suddenly it's a bit of a game changer.
And it's that thing that we clocked a while ago, which was building a community is the crucial thing. And actually that's what every marketer needs to be focused on doing. I think for years we've been trying to crib off of communities on social media platforms, and that's getting harder and harder to do because the algorithms are just turned against us. They used to be all in our favor, right? Because we were the only people pushing out content out there, but now everyone's pushing it out. They can be a bit choosy, and it's very much structured around them just becoming more and more profitable. Algorithms are very, very good at doing that. You can just tweak the screws and make that happen. But here's the satisfying truth: people are people, and they like people, and they like personality, and they like that color in their lives. And that's why Jay loves reality TV so much, because it's filled with that, right? It's like really, really good. So I think that in itself speaks volumes. But that's what everybody out there needs to be trying to do. If they don't want to get wiped out by this tsunami, this is the only magic bullet that I can see that's going to kind of fight against this. And I totally agree with Jay. Be unique, be honest, be transparent. That's absolutely key to this. If you have that, these boiled down in 3 words, all that I've been banging on about for the last 2 minutes. I would, really good.
I'd also say from this, like this transparency, just and the uniqueness. Be careful with this because you don't need to be absolutely transparent. Like
No.
people don't necessarily care what's going on in my life in personal stuff. It's not about that level of transparency. It's about actually the personality that's me on the podcast. The personality that's me as a trainer is a particular part of my personality. I don't need to bring all my other rubbish into it. I don't need to, it doesn't have to be this 100% transparency type thing, which I think there's too much of on social media where I don't care about that stuff. I'm not interested in the fact that you did this, did that. But saying that, Jay did make an initial point, which was like, what did you have for breakfast? And it's like, that's actually interesting. Like, why did you eat that breakfast? There's a story behind why you had that. We were in a rush. Yeah. Was it the fact that you're on a diet? Because you're like, and he was saying, I knew I was coming on stage. So I've been eating horrible food for months because I've been trying to lose some weight because I'm getting fat. And it just, okay, so that's some personality, right? So you can make anything interesting if you just think about what's the human story behind it. So I thought that was great. Let's move on because Jay's going to come on and he'll talk about all this stuff a lot more. The Guru conference is actually coming up, so we'll put that link in. It's a free online conference. Amazing speakers as normal. Well, I want to. There's 2 other kind of main topics or businesses I want to go to in this episode. One is OpenAI came on, spoke about some stuff that I thought, I haven't really clocked that. That's really interesting. So ChatGPT, one of the first things he said. And this made me on my brain kind of go, okay, is that the use of these generative AIs, the cost of using them, is the fastest depreciating technology in history. And
what does that mean? Just unpack
it means
that
it's got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, quicker and quicker and quicker.
Right,
so
okay.
in March of 2023, so just a year and a bit ago, so you get 1 million tokens. Now, the way it works, if you're using the API, the programming interface to access this stuff, because you want to create a tool that utilizes some of their functionality, okay? And very loosely, a token is a word, right? So you're sending backwards and forwards the words. And if you want to do 1 million words, that would cost you $36 or thereabouts, okay? So it could get pretty expensive pretty quickly. So say you're giving something away free, people are using this AI tool, your bill is going to get pretty big, pretty quick. Now, September 24, when they announced this, the current version of the large language model that kind of behind it, so 4.0 mini, so it's 4 Omni. So mini is the kind of faster version of this one, was 25 cents for 1 million tokens.
Wow.
Okay, that's bonkers, right? So what it means is the ability for people now to build things that utilize this technology has become infinitely easier and very, very much cheaper, which means you're going to see an explosion of AI tools, and everything that you get is going to have AI baked into it to assist you. So the reality is that, yes, it's great that you've got a little chat thing that's got AI, but actually this will just be baked in to make loads of stuff useful as well. So I think that there's a great opportunity. The other thing is that if people haven't kind of clocked onto it as well, ChatGPT, the latest version at this kind of given time is 0.1. There's a preview of 0.1. 0.1 is light years ahead of all the other models from a reasoning point of view. And I love the context they gave for this. So if you want to do something quick, use the 4.0 mini. Like you want to write 5 variations for a subject line. If it's a 5-minute task, right, that's a good model to use. If you've got something that's like an hour task that normally take you about an hour, so you're writing a report or you're writing an article or something like that, then 4 Omni is probably a good way to go with that stuff. Whereas if you had a task that was normally going to take you a day, you can write a strategy or something like that, then 1.0 is the way to go. And it's brilliant because what it will do, you give it a kind of challenge and it will come up with like 6 or 7 different kind of solutions to doing it. And then it will reason through it and try and work out what's the best approach to doing it. So it can answer really challenging questions. You can give it data and say, where should I focus my marketing budget? And it does some really incredible analysis, which we tested this 6 months ago. Didn't work at all. So if you haven't played with it, some people referring to it as Strawberry was the kind of code name for it as well. So to take a look at that. So that's good. That really pleased you.
Cue a whole bunch of fruit names for you. I'd prefer that. I can cope with
0.1
strawberries.
and 4 Omni.
Yeah, you lost me there. I just got a bit confused. But all I got from that was there are different versions for different levels of tasks. But I'll have to Google it now to find it. We can put this in the show notes.
We will put it in the show notes.
I had a moment with ChatGPT this morning where I was asking it to do things, and what it was coming out with, I wasn't happy with at all. I'm like, what's going on here? And what had actually gone on was I hadn't logged in to my paid account.
You're in the free version.
I was in the free version, and it just shows you how much that's like improved. Like, it was quite shocking because I guess we're all getting used to, its ability to do quite complex things and stream quite complex logic.
Yeah, this is the difference, because the newer models are so much better than the previous ones, and it's moving on so quickly. So yeah, definitely we're playing around with. The other thing was that they talked a lot about Search GPT. They are launching a search engine. Now, the difference being, and I mentioned this briefly before, is that you go to Google and you get that search generative experience where it gives you an answer that's AI generated, which is pretty good. The difference is with Search GPT, you do a search and it gives you a result, but then the next search you do is in the context of that, so it remembers what you did last. So if you say, right, what's the best place to surf in this region or in this country, and it will say, well, this is what people think, and this is general consensus, and they go, what's the weather going to be like there on this week? And it knows where you're talking about, so you can have that interactive conversation with it to develop your kind of thing, and that's missing. I'm sure Google can do that.
Well, this whole business terrifies me. I think this should be the thing everybody's really worried about going into next year. What happens when AI search gives you the exact answer you need? What happens in the world for marketing when the search page result of 10 to 12 things becomes one thing? Right. And it was something that I asked the guys at Google about, and they're like actively exploring this at the moment. I think the good thing is, that whole stat you gave where 15% of things have never been asked for before is new, and the sheer volume of things that are being used. But is there enough volume there to satisfy everybody?
Well, it's different use cases, right?
And like, how's that gonna translate and work? At the moment, we've gone from really enjoying lots of potential links for SEO on that first page, where you've got sort of potentially 8 or 9 plus 3 or 4 ads as well, potentially. As well. And I think, how that space shapes out, we don't know yet. Like, no one's really released that, but how that space shapes out, and it's going to be interesting. Like, the any one of these platforms could come up with something that actually does it better than Google does, and that for Google, I'm sure is terrifying as well, because there's so much infrastructure and stuff tied up within that.
Well, the difference being as well that if you're using a pro account of ChatGPT, you're paying a subscription. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Google, they sell advertising. And that's become harder and harder because of the lack of third-party cookies, because people are potentially going to these AI search engines potentially, but also the fact that the cost of processing power for doing the AI stuff is costing them more money as well. So I think it is interesting, but I think it's a use case thing, right? So if I want to explore a topic like where I'm going to go on holiday, interacting with AI might make a sensible thing. If I'm trying to find the best place to do a course online, I probably want to go through a few different options and do it slightly differently. Now, the AI will certainly learn that and approach it slightly differently, but it probably means things like online reviews and community discussions and the stuff that's going on in Reddit and all that stuff becomes more important, because that's what's feeding the AIs in the first place.
For me, still, the only life raft to this is your own first-party data.
Right.
And email lists.
Yeah.
Because that whole landscape, again, Louise, you were saying how any one platform can disappear on social media. So equally for any one strategy you've got. So, you might be dining out, as I'm sure a lot of you are, on search ads, but that could change. Maybe not for everybody, but for some portions. We've seen that, happen in the travel industry, for example. That changed overnight. Suddenly everything could be done through a search engine. You didn't even need to visit the said website. So one to watch, I think. But yeah, I'm that's what's keeping me up at night, worrying about stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's move that. In the first part of this, and the previous episode, we talked a lot about Google ads. I just wanted to mention LinkedIn ads. And that's B2B specific, but what's interesting is they released a load of stuff at Inbound that's trying to do very similar things that we talked about with Google Ads with this first-party data piece. So they released their Conversions API, or CAPI as they're kind of calling it. And what that allows you to do is connect LinkedIn to first-party data. So to your CRM system, to your website in some way, to lots of other systems, you can bring those in. And so, for example, what you can see is how are your ads within LinkedIn, maybe not driving a sale directly, you can measure that, but is it maybe moving people down your lead stages? So if you've got a complicated B2B and you've got like 6 different lead stages, you can see, well, actually, the person that clicked on that content moved forward 3 stages. You've also then got this thing called the Revenue Attribution Report, RAR. And again, if you sync your CRM up into this, now be careful of this because they'll say, well, you need this LinkedIn account, you need a Sales Navigator Plus account. And then your CRM will say, well, yes, you need this particular version. So it can all get quite expensive. And that was my other observation with HubSpot, was that they released all this data, but you needed, like we used the marketing version of it, but then you needed the sales version as well. And you needed the content version, and it's suddenly like tripling your cost. So be cautious of that. But it interested me that they're doing exactly the same thing, in that they're bringing all that first party data in. So you can say, okay, how is the stuff that I'm doing in LinkedIn? Because the comment that was made, LinkedIn ads, what they basically say is they cost bottom of the funnel, as in, you're trying to get people that are just at the right point of doing, but they act like top of the funnel, the people that click. So it's like, oh, that's not good because it's costing loads of money and it's not really converting, because you can't really untangle it very easily.
So do they think this new way of doing it solves that?
Well, what it should do is give you a much clearer view of what's happening to those people that click on your ads. What do they go on to do? Do they come back to the website multiple times? Do they change their lead status? You haven't got that view otherwise, unless you're tying those two things together. So I think LinkedIn have realized, unless they can bring that CRM data together with this, that people aren't going to spend the money on the advertising. So I think that's really interesting. A couple other things that came out that were brand new for me. There's something called LinkedIn Marketing Labs. And LinkedIn Marketing Labs is loads of training and certification, all of this stuff. They've basically got a training portal, not the Lynda Learning stuff that's on everything, but this is very specific to LinkedIn ads. So I'd go and take a look at that, and we'll put that into the show notes as well. And then there was this thing called Business Manager. And I was like, well, I've got a business page and my business is listed and I've got an ad account. Is that not the same thing? It's not. So what you need to do, if you just search LinkedIn Business Manager, you register your company name. So it's probably a good time to do this now before everyone kind of gets your company name. And then what you can do is you connect various pages and various ad accounts into your business manager, and you can connect your staff into that as well. And that's where you get that revenue attribution report. So if you're connecting all this stuff up, you can get some split reports, but it just means you can manage everything in one place, which is nice, because what you can then do is you can create an audience. So maybe connect it to your CRM system and say, these are all my paying customers at the moment, but you can then use that across multiple ad accounts, and you could never do that kind of stuff before. So it's just allowing you to manage things.
It's like Meta Business Suite, but hopefully a lot nicer to use.
Well, yes, because it would be hard to be worse to use, wouldn't it? Because Meta Business Suite is horrifically disjointed. This did feel a bit, this did feel really disjointed as well, to be honest. 'Cause it's like, I didn't know this existed, and I've had to set it up.
To hear you say it, Lewis. I thought it was just because I was old and a bit inflexible, but I've always hated it as well. I've just kept that to myself.
They're all horrible.
It's not my friend.
Google Ads is getting better, but even that is so horrifically overly complex sometimes that it's not always the easiest to use. But I think, because they keep bolting bits on, you can end up with an account and then you have to log in again to a different section and then join the account. Anyway, it all gets a bit complicated. So if you are doing LinkedIn advertising, set your business manager up and start looking at this conversions API and the revenue attribution report, because it's the stuff like in Google Ads that's taking the first party data. It's allowing them to use AI to target stuff. And it means you can untangle where your spend is going on a little bit more as well. So that brings me to the end all my updates from kind of Inbound. Rather shockingly, Inbound is not in Boston next year. It's in San Francisco.
Ooh.
So
Wow.
I'm not happy about that at all, because
Be
I
sure
always
to wear a flower in your hair.
I will do. But it that kind of completely floated by, Louise.
That's a song, Louise.
Oh, is it?
Well,
Yeah.
after this, you need to visualize this now, because Kieran will be playing this to Louise, and Louise will have
We did do this.
her look on her face of like, I'll tolerate this for a little while, but I'm not going to tolerate it for much longer.
Amazing.
So anyway, thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast. This was our 401st episode. So thank you for joining us. Couple of things as ever. If you're not in the newsletter, targetinternet.com/newsletter. If you want the show notes, all the stuff that we've spoken about will be there, targetinternet.com/podcast. Kieran, go ahead.
Yeah. So look, 401 episodes. If you haven't already, please leave us a review. Please. Please.
targetinternet.com/review. And if you go through and screenshot it, good or bad, we will. If you want some merchandise, we'll send you some merchandise as well. We've got mugs and memory sticks and stickers and all sorts of fun things. And the mugs are aces because they're like jumbo sized.
Huge.
So yeah, they're very, very good. So I'm very pleased with those. So thank you as ever for listening, for sticking with us for 401 episodes, particularly if you've been listening. If you've been listening since the beginning,
some people have.
I know.
Some people listen to
They're
every
very
single
tolerant.
back episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. The only place they're all available is on the Target Internet website.
Yeah.
So you get the last 100 in all of the platforms, but if you want to go beyond that, then we've got all that stuff as well. So thank you for listening. Thank you guys for being such a lovely co-hosts, and I will speak to you again on the Digital Marketing Podcast. For more episodes, resources, to leave a review, or to get in contact, go to targetinternet.com/podcast.